Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Destination Marketing Podcast. I'm your host, Adam Stoker. We've got a great show for you today, and I actually wanted to bring back a guest that I've had on the show a few times at this point, and he's one of the more thoughtful people, especially when it comes to marketing and strategy, that I've ever worked with. He works in our organization. His name's Camden Bernatz. Camden, at this point, is over all of our creative and strategic initiatives. And Camden, really excited to have you join me again on the show.
Glad to be back. Thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. For those that maybe are hearing you for the first time, maybe they haven't heard every episode of our 415 episodes that we've launched. Slackers, if that's the case, but either way, if they haven't heard it, give us a little bit of your backstory, Camden. Who are you? What's your journey been like? And how'd you end up where you are today?
I love marketing. That's my story. When I was going to school in college, I was studying psychology. I thought I wanted to get into become a psychiatrist, or that was kind of the main route, but it changed over time. But essentially psychology. But I always had an interest, in business a little bit, and kind of followed what brands were doing. And I was someone who wasn't. I'm going to say I like ads. I don't like little pop-up ads online. Everyone hates those. Those are annoying. But I wasn't upset when there was commercial breaks. I was intrigued by commercials and things like that. And anyways, I ended up taking some marketing courses, just electives and stuff when I was in school, and really liked it. And thought, hey, well, maybe I should do some more of this. Ended up doing like some internships, and anyways, decided I wanted to go into marketing instead, but I wasn't going to go restart my major. I was almost done with my undergrad, and so I ended up graduating still in psychology. My degree's in psychology, but I immediately was looking for opportunities and working in marketing, and I've been in marketing since during school. So yeah, I hopped around doing marketing in house for some people, and eventually was fortunate to make my way to brand revolt at the time called Relic.
Yep.
But Adam hired me. I started out doing digital marketing and SEO first, but then transitioned to brand strategy and did more creative and copywriting and things like that, and have worn a few different hats, but now I'm here. It's been a little over 6 years now. So yeah.
Yeah, and your story is one of my absolute favorites. I've told it on the show before, so I'm not going to bore everybody with all the details. But I remember when we met you at a company event, you were doing marketing for a small kind of entertainment company that had like an axe throwing business. And in fact, that's the event that we were doing at the time, and you were working there. And you sent me a message on LinkedIn. And this is one of the reasons when I say you're one of the more thoughtful people that I've worked with, you clearly put a ton of thought into the message that you sent me. In fact, gosh, I want to go find that LinkedIn message, find the original, and post that. Because you basically said, hey, listen, I've done some research on your company, and I see that you guys, at least as far as I can tell, don't have search engine optimization in-house. Here's why you need it in-house. Here's how I can build it for you in-house, and why you should hire me. And the funny thing is we had a vendor that we were using for search engine optimization, but I just thought, man, if this guy has put this much thought into the idea of bringing SEO in-house, I should give it a shot. And the funniest part of that is your journey with SEO was, I would say, relatively short-lived, because we immediately started giving you more things to do and more responsibility when you came in with that. But I think it speaks to the way you kind of think things through. And one of the things that I've always struggled with as an employer, as a leader, is when people come to me with a case of, hey, I need this because I've been here for this long, or because I want this, or whatever. And instead, when somebody comes to me, and the people who've worked with me for a long time know this, it's kind of a cheat code. But if you say, hey, look, I need this, and here's the additional value that I've provided along the way, you're much more likely to get a yes from me. And so I thought it was just another example of giving deep thought to something like this. And anyway, it led to a pretty amazing 6 years of having you be here at Brand Revolt.
Yeah, it's been great. I appreciate it. I have a question for you, if that's all right. Not to derail the topic too much, but I just heard you just said what you said about basically making the case of like, hey, here's the value I have provided, and I heard I heard, and me with the SEO pitch was kind of more of a here's a value I could provide, and both are valuable. I think it was Simon Sinek. I just saw a clip of him talking to a group about how a lot of time in the past, if you were in a organization, you would do stuff, you'd prove yourself, and then you would be like, look what I have done. Now can I get a raise or change a position or something like that? And now he feels like more and more in modern culture, modern work culture, it's more, will you pay me? If you pay me more, if you give me the position, then I will do XYZ. Do you feel like, one, I guess, any response to that? And do you feel more apt to give somebody, whether it's salary or role or responsibility, because they say, look what I'm gonna do for you, or look what I have done for you?
Yeah, man, I love the question. It's a great leadership question. I'll say that I've learned my answer to those questions the hard way. I'll start with when you first reached out, I hadn't hired you yet, so I had no way to see what your track record was. So the
Yeah.
way you thought through what you could do for me was enough for me to say, yes, I want to hire this person. But once someone has worked for you and you've seen the way that they approach their work and the way they think about their work and the work that they've done, you have a really good indication of the value they've already provided and the increase in value, especially through learning and development that they've had during the course of their time. And so what they have done track record wise becomes more important than what they could do because you're kind of seeing that trend, right? And so I'm not taking as much of a risk as I was when I was hiring you by giving someone a raise who's already demonstrated continued growth, continued learning, continued development, right? So to me, Simon Sinek is right. The proposals in today's day and age are definitely more like, I would say, NBA contracts, right? Where like you sign before they've ever played on your team and you guarantee them, $12 million. I wish I was guaranteeing everybody $12 million, but in the NBA, they'll guarantee somebody $12 million before they've ever played in a uniform, right? And unfortunately, in most businesses, you're unable to do that prepayment. And in fact, I have made the mistake early on when people made a really compelling case of what they would do if I gave them more money. Rarely does it actually pan out. It's the people who demonstrate a consistent ability to grow, learn, and develop that I've been able to move forward consistently in our organization, whether that means more money, whether it means more responsibility. For you, in many cases, it's meant both along the way, right? And so I've advanced you in our, and I even hate to say I've advanced you. You've advanced yourself in our organization by continuing to take on more and more responsibility, and in turn, we get greater value from you, and then the money comes as a result because of the increased value and increased responsibility you take along the way. So my recommendation to anybody asking for a raise, especially if you're already in the organization, demonstrate the value first. And what you've done is made yourself more marketable so that if the company is not in a position to take care of you or increase your salary or responsibility or whatever, you're now marketable enough to where, guess what? You might be more valuable to someone else too. There is no losing situation if you develop yourself. You're either going to win with the company you're in or win with another organization, and the company wins as well. So yeah, that's how I look at that dynamic. I definitely don't think, I learned the hard way that prepaying rarely results in the actual result you're looking for.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Thanks. I was curious by your perspective,
Man.
and I'll join your podcast anytime if you're going to bring me on and say nice things about me. So I appreciate it.
Well, who knows? We might need to do it more, but I want to get into the topic, Camden, because it segues really nicely from the discussion that we just had, because I kind of came out in, I think it was April or May of last year, and declared to our organization that I needed every single person in the organization, because of what's happening with AI, because of the dynamic of our existing client relationships. I looked at our healthy client relationships, I looked at our unhealthy client relationships, and I said, okay, what's the underlying issue in most of the ones that we're having a hard time being successful with? And every single time, the ones that we were struggling with were organizations who valued what we do more than how we think. And the ones that value how we think, those relationships were healthier, they were stronger, they seemed to last longer. And the reality was our people were happier working on those projects and accounts, right? And so I made this declaration to our team last year at the beginning of the summer. I also have made it on the podcast multiple times since then. And one of the things that I tasked you with was helping us understand how to, like, it's one thing to make the declaration, okay, everybody needs to be more strategic. But how do you actually implement that across an organization? You running creative team and most fulfillment, how do you get the team members who have historically been incentivized in lots of cases to be doers? How do you get these people to transition into thinkers so that we can increase the value of the product and their value as a team member?
Well, let me start with one aspect that's kind of that's an elephant you got to take one bite at a time. But one thing that I think should happen, and that it's all easier said than done, but a philosophical approach is, I think someone might hear, oh, be more strategic, be a strategic thinker. And if you are on, and I'll speak to the agency side, if you're an agency trying to serve a client and you think, I'll be strategic, you need to recognize that by trying to take care of the client, you are therefore taking care of the agency. And I don't mean you still work for the agency. Like, don't like, make bad deals or take advantage of your client or your agency's time or something like that. But by saying that, what I mean is, I think a lot of times people just think, okay, well, within the process that we usually follow as an agency, or within the exact SOW we've laid out, or with the way we've done it before, I'm going to have better ideas, or I'm going to be strategic, but I'm not going to really change the system. I think what we need to do is put yourself in the shoes of what the client is trying to accomplish. Forget how we've done it as an agency. Forget how we priced it in the past. Forget the timeline we might have used to build something, the tool we used to build it, whatever it might be. Just think, if I'm so-and-so client, what would I be needing right now? What would I be worried about? What am I looking ahead and need? And just in your mind, you work for them. You're on their team. And those ideas that you have and those suggestions and those kind of things, then you come back and say, hey, as an agency, here's what we can do for them. I think as I'm saying this might sound kind of like, duh, it's obvious. But I think I've seen lots of times where people are, oh yeah, I'll be strategic. And then it's like, hey, which one of our products are we going to give to them? Or which one of our, deliverables that we've done, which one of these do they need? Maybe none of them. Like, forget thinking about how you've done it before. What does the client need? What's the client not recognizing about themselves that they haven't even asked for yet? But when you're in their shoes and their situation, you think about, it's thought experiments of, what do they need? What would I recognize around me as a marketing thinker in their situation, and then decide, what can an agency do? That might be a consultation. It might be designing something. It might be reaching out to a certain audience. It might be all kinds of stuff, but you can answer that better and be strategic by putting yourself in their shoes.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think that's a great kind of just big picture, philosophical, principled approach, right? I want to know, especially with you, because one of the things that I mentioned earlier is that you're really thoughtful about things, and the way that's provided value to me over the last several years, especially since we added you to our executive team. I'm kind of a visionary hard charger. Hey guys, here's the way I think it ought to be, so let's all go. And one of the things that I really value about you is you are okay, I see what you're trying to accomplish, but I have questions that I need to think through and map to the answer before I just say, yeah, I'm 100% on board, let's go. And what you've allowed me to do in several of these cases is recognize maybe some gaps in my logic or holes in my story, right, that I need to address before we can just go hard charging down a path. And the reason I bring that thought process up that you've kind of helped add value to me with is when we talked about going from tactician to strategist, I want to know, what were the thoughts that you had just about whether it's like macro circumstances of what's going on, or even the micro in our agency that might not work because of this, or how will clients respond to this? What were the different thoughts that kind of rattled around in your head as you evaluated, which I appreciate that you always do, whether or not this was the right direction for you individually to move from tactician to strategist, although you were farther along than most, and us as an organization to do the same?
I stopped thinking about what my title and role was because that would be too easy to think, well, what I do is I, you know, and speaking if anyone's having that thought, they might think I design websites or I write copy or I place ads or I whatever. And you're going to think within that sandbox. And I just try to think, what's good business? I feel like, and this is, and I'm not saying I'm the best at doing this ever, but what I think is an advantage to me is I truly, it's a game I like to play. The game of business and marketing. I should say marketing. I'm not great with you know, operations of financials, whatever. But from the marketing perspective of business, I truly enjoy the challenge. It's like a giant board game. So that's just kind of come naturally. But because of that, I don't think about, okay, today with this client, I do, creative direction or I write copy. What would be a great headline for them? Like sometimes it's headlines, sometimes it's thinking about concepts, but I just think about what do they need to win the game? Oh, they have a competitor that's doing this. How can we counter that? Or they have something that's happening in the industry that's affecting them. What would I do if I was running their brand? Or they're going to repackage something. What does their package need to do on the shelves? I just think about almost like if I own the business, I guess, what's the next winning move? And sometimes that idea I have is something I had the skill set for and I want to present it. Sometimes it's like, hey, person in digital media, I'm not really familiar with Pinterest ads, let's say, but I was thinking maybe isn't Pinterest a place where they could find blah, blah, blah. And I'm talking about paid media. No, I should talk about content ideas. That's we're all about content, but Pinterest ads for an example, and I'll pull in people. And so I don't know if that's the best answer to your question of what you want, because it comes from a natural drive that I had, which is I just want to win this game. I want to keep winning. I want to solve the problems. So it's a natural tendency for me to not think about specifically what I can do, but what should anyone do? And then I'll find the people to help do it. And it may be something on their internal team, the client's team, that takes care of something. Maybe I don't do anything, but I gave them an idea and they're like, oh, thanks for that. You're thinking about. So I guess an admission to you is I wish I had a better answer, because I don't think I've been that good at helping other people do that. I feel like sometimes people want to stay, well, I do this thing. And I'm like, yeah, but your thing's more effective if you think beyond your role and your position. Don't you want to do that? And I don't know exactly the way to pull people into that. I'm trying to get better at it, but
Well, I think it's funny that you say that, because I look around at the people who you directly manage and I see the transition taking place. And I actually think it probably has to do with the fact that you said, forget my job title. I'm going to figure out what needs to be done and solve problems regardless of what it takes to solve the problem. They're probably gleaning that from you in a lot of ways. But I want to go back specifically to the fact that you said I had to get rid of the traditional job description in order to do that. I actually think that's one of the critical things that are going to be required in order for people to make the transition from tactician to strategist. So my question for you is, why is, and obviously I agree with it, but why is that necessary to remove the rigidity of job descriptions in order to make this transition?
it's just because it's how you see yourself. The labels you apply, your identity, and I'm not saying that someone's job should be, their whole identity. You're more than just your job at work. But when it comes to work, I see myself as a creative strategist. And that doesn't just mean one type of work, one type of project, one type of medium. I want, to me, I am intrinsically motivated, and I believe I'll provide the best value to my agency and my clients if I can help them solve problems. And so to me, it's almost, in a selfish way, I'm stressed at the opportunities I'm missing if I'm not thinking about the whole picture. And to me, it's if I just sit in my little area and say, well, I don't know about websites, or I don't think about digital marketing, or I don't think about audience, characteristics and targeting, and I just wait for my task to come in, I'm stressed at missed potential. What if I could do something? What if I could help make a difference? And so, I mean, it's not selfish. I do want to help them, but a little bit intrinsically, I want to win. And so, if I'm going to have to show up, everyone needs to earn a living. I want to show up and feel like not I just didn't just do the job, but like I made something happen. And so to me, the job thinking too much about, well, this is my space, this is I work. I'll constantly be looking over the fence at someone else and saying I have ideas for them too, and I don't want to feel limited by that.
Where you started though, it's how you see yourself. I think that was actually really profound for everybody that's listening, because as soon as we decide I am a copywriter, or I am a, graphic designer, or I'm a community engagement specialist, right? Like whatever the job title, that does become what you see yourself as, right? And by removing that job title, the limits of what you can accomplish in lots of cases are removed, right? And I look at how we got here. Marketing became such a siloed function that we, over the years, without knowing it, brand and strategy were sacrificed for tactical execution. You had the Facebook person who was a brilliant Facebook ads person and would just A/B test headlines, A/B test images, A/B test all this stuff, and their Facebook ads would perform great. But then all of a sudden you realize the distance from that Facebook ad to the brand standards of the organization are so disparate that the purpose for the Facebook ads in the first place in some cases can be lost, and then the brand has a difficult time recovering. So I think that's what led to the siloing, is I think performance marketing had a lot to do with that. And I think there's this awakening going on now of, yes, like the ability to turn the buttons or press the buttons in the platform and adjust the bids and all that kind of stuff. That is an important skill, but those are tactics that are downstream from strategy. And the job description keeps you downstream instead of allowing you to dabble up in the strategy portion of the process. This year was a whirlwind. I was able to go to so many conferences and meet so many of you in person. It was such a wonderful experience, and I'm grateful for every event that had me come speak. It is something that I'm continuing to do. I've really enjoyed it, and I want to continue to be able to speak at events. My spring is already kind of filling up for next year, which is a little crazy. I've already got a wild all-night flight plan to get from one conference to another, but I really would like to be able to come to as many conferences as I can, so that I can interact with each of you and be able to share some of the things that I've learned and that I'm seeing in the industry and where it's going. So if you have interest in having me attend one of your events, whether it's a governor's conference or if you're one of the major associations in the industry, let me know. I want to make sure that I get it on the calendar as early as possible, and I can't wait to see you all in person. Reach out to me, adam@thebrandrevolt.com, if you'd like me to come speak at your event.
You guys have talked a lot on this podcast, and you have Destination Discourse. I know you guys have talked about AI for a lot. AI is incredible, and I'm pro AI. But AI is incredible when you know what you need it to kick out. So I mean, it helps you get there as well. But if I say, you could tell AI, you are an expert digital marketer, figure out how to place this. You are a great, blog writer. You have to give it its silo, give it its what cap to wear, and then it can kick out a good design. It can kick out the way that I want to keep myself employed and valuable to a client and agency outside of AI is when a client doesn't know what prompt to give yet. They just say, competitors moving in on us. Like, send. Like, that's my prompt. What do we do? Or how do we solve that? We're losing market share. How do I solve that? People don't seem to recognize our name out in the world. They don't know us by our new name. How do I solve that? I don't know yet if that is give me a design, give me code, give me lyrics to a song, all the stuff that AI can kick out. It may turn into that, and our team will eventually put out writing or designs or videos or whatever. But I want to be in the room when they say, what does our business need? Like what to what end should marketing or branding be accomplishing something? I want to be thinking about those things and value there. So later on, they might go to ChatGPT, but the things that I've talked to them about, the things I've made them think about or I've suggested are the prompts that they then want to take to ChatGPT. Hey, I was talking to Camden at Brand Revolt. I mean, they wouldn't use my name in ChatGPT, but they was talking, and they said that, hey, maybe people, if they understood this thing about us, then they would value this thing more. what can I do messaging wise to do that? Or how can my website be structured to do that? Or sure, go use your AI, your internal team, use my team, whatever to fulfill. But you needed my strategy, or at least benefited from my strategy to help you get there. And I'm acting like I always had the answer. Sometimes I don't, but that's where I want to operate, is not as a copywriter, as a whatever. It is just a strategist, like capital S, thinking strategically.
Well, and you insinuated where things are going that I think is absolutely right. You said, let AI handle the silos for you. If you can think the way you need to think to solve a problem, AI will handle the tactical execution. Or if you still need to do it, I mean, I've leveraged AI a lot of times to give me step-by-step platform instructions on how to execute the thing that I'm struggling with, right? So the doing is going to continue to become commoditized. One of the things that we talked about in an effort to help support the transition from tactician to strategist, I introduced in our organization the idea of starting with first principles thinking in everything that we do, right? And you and I actually had a lot of discussion around first principles and was that the right kind of backbone for us to be able to think strategically? Tell us a little bit about the thought journey that you went through when we first introduced the idea of starting with first principles.
Yeah, I to jump to the end quickly, like I'm a fan of that. I'll tell you, to those who are listening, my struggle with it, and the reason I'll think it's worth sharing that is in case anyone has a similar, is my understanding of first principles was so true but basic that I was like, but so what? Like, yeah, it basically I oversimplified it, saying, yeah, think about, like, ask why and have what are the truths upon which you're building your decisions, like have a good basically have a good reason for what you're doing. And I was like, sure, yeah, okay, I'll lock that away and keep trying. It didn't seem as like in practice, I'm like, what do how's that changing what I actually do to say I'm going to be first principles thinking? And the way I've landed, and maybe it's still a little bit different than you see, Adam, you can let me know, but to me, it's not necessarily the idea is so revolutionary to have it. It is in how I convey and sell ideas and communicate to clients or to internal team members, basically making the case for things. And so I might have a great idea, let's say, but if I'm not tying them to first principles or making clear the principles on which I'm basing, it's hard to recognize it as a good idea, or a good idea for what, for who, for what outcome. Is it because it's fun? Is it going to move this needle or that needle? And so it's kind of identifying up front, here, client, I'm going to give you this idea, and it's a content strategy or a true fans program or whatever it is. But before you react to the specifics of this plan, of this proposal, here's a truth. I'm trying to react to this, or people react to this in this way. Here's a situation in the market. Here's the principles that have then said, okay, in order to solve XYZ or address XYZ, now look at my recipe for how to do so. And then they can decide. They might have some feedback. They might disagree even, but at least the disagreement or the discussion is based on, is that addressing the right principles or not? Not, okay, cool, sounds good, or I like that idea, or I took it to my nephew in the marketing class in college and he said it was a good idea. Like you're tying it to principles. So to me, it's you may already be thinking first principles thinking, whether you call it that or not out there, but being able to identify that and put them down and tie your case to those things, I think will make it more effective for those pitching and those deciding on the pitch and reacting to it.
Yeah, I definitely think you're thinking about it the right way. And you know, one of the reasons we landed on first principles as kind of our like guiding thought process for strategic creation is because in marketing, one of the I would say biggest pitfalls is allowing the past to dictate the future as opposed to starting from first principles. You know, letting the past dictate the future is called reasoning by analogy, right? It's like, here's what happened before, and we're going to use the evidence of what happened before to help us decide where to go from here. And if you do that for long enough, you slowly start to lose the first principles of why that activity is taking place at all in the first place, right? And so the reasoning by analogy is kind of the slow walk towards marketing death. And it doesn't happen immediately. You can actually still get results for a while, but if it goes on for too long, you're in big trouble. And so to avoid that, Whenever we're given a problem to solve, I don't care if we're building a budget, I don't care if we're building a marketing plan, I don't care if we're coming up with a creative idea, I don't care if we're making a YouTube video. We cannot start with the past, or eventually we're going to get to that cliff that I'm talking about. We have to start with, why are we doing what we're doing? What are we trying to accomplish? And if what we come up with doesn't map to accomplishing that goal, we are wrong. And yet you can use so much of the past to justify a lot of those activities that aren't tied to first principles. And that's why we felt like, from a framework perspective, it was going to be a really, really important way to help everyone in our organization understand the importance of being strategic in every problem, every conversation.
Can I identify? I think looking back on something, I think that I don't know if you were thinking in the terms of first principle thinking, but something you've talked about, I think, is kind of an example of that happening in destination marketing specifically, which is who this audience, this podcast is focused on. There is this quote unquote rule, and I'm putting it in quotes because it's not really a rule, that is from the past, of like a good piece of content or an ad is that you got to have a call to action. Like, you got to make sure you have a clear what action you want them to take. And that's like a buy now kind of button, right? Or visit. Destinations aren't airlines. They're connected to them. Destinations aren't like, they're not a product on a shelf. So a destination putting out an ad doesn't have a buy now button. You don't buy a destination. You just plan around it. You think about it. You stop on your way through. And so trying to force that quote unquote rule of having good thoughts, in the past, there'll be lots of like, book a trip today or something. And like you talked about, people don't get married on the first date. Like, they're not going to go see an ad online and be like, oh my gosh, I'm going to go travel there right now. It's a wasted paid media impression in most cases. And so if you were to ask the first principle, or question that and ask why are we even putting things on the internet for people to see for a destination? Is it to get a booking right away? It shouldn't be, because that's not going to happen. So then if it's not to get a booking, what is it for? And I'm paraphrasing and putting words in what people might into their mouth that they might answer with, but like, it's to get people to think of me or to have a feeling about me or to what. And so then something like a podcast makes a lot more sense when it doesn't have a clear call to action in the moment. You're not ending the podcast and say, all right, book your trip today to come to this thing, but you're providing entertainment, providing value. Anyways, I'm just giving a podcast as an example, but like, that was one thing that the industry as a whole, and you've been kind of helping champion that, is challenging a principle, a non-first, I don't know, I guess by analogy, right?
Yeah.
What's it called? Something by analogy?
Reasoning by analogy.
Reasoning by analogy is like, well, if we run a piece of content, we've got to have a clear call to action to measure conversions. Can't do that with a destination. Like, you're not measuring visit conversion with your content. So don't try to do that. Try to do it for the right. What principles are you actually operating on? And maybe I'm oversimplifying a little bit, but that's one thing that I think is an example of, well, why are you even running ads? Like, for what end? Because if it's for the wrong thing, then you're wasting your time and money.
Absolutely. A quick note on that is I strongly believe that it's not just reasoning by analogy that leads a lot of people to want to optimize for conversion in the destination marketing space. I think ego is a big part of it as well, because we want to say we influenced that visit. But then you look at how you yourself make your travel decisions. And I can't imagine that there's a single person who actually sat down and this banner ad popped up on a website and it said, visit this beautiful beach and this beautiful destination. And I dropped everything and said, I'm going to book this trip today. And yet we've optimized our marketing strategies to pretend that that's what actually takes place, right? And even when we talk about the historical marketing funnel of awareness, consideration, and purchase, that purchase part, you actually didn't influence the purchase. You may have influenced them considering you as a destination, but your ad didn't make them say, you know what, now's the time, I'm booking today. No, they talk with their family. They decide whether or not they're going to book a trip, and you're one of the people that are in the mix, and they're going to discuss what the circumstances are and everything. But the trick is to get their attention, have them trust that you're going to give them a great experience, and they are going to decide when they purchase. You are not. And that's actually a debate I've even had with Stuart on Destination Discourse recently, is whether or not we truly are the catalyst for purchase. And if we get lost in the ego of wanting to take credit for the purchase, we're going to sacrifice the inspiration chasing something that we'll never be able to prove.
Yeah, why do DMOs exist? Like we talked about that on an episode of the other show with you and Stuart. Like to what end? Because if it's, anyways, yeah, you could answer that a few different ways, but I think there's a lot of answers that I would challenge people to, I guess, answer that in your head. Why does your organization exist? To what end? What's the purpose? Why are you funded? And then say, like, I guess just challenge that. Like, is that why? Because if that is true, then that would mean, and that is a way to kind of then extend that a few layers deep. And I'm not saying that you're wrong, whatever your answer is, but that's go further. Why does
Yeah.
my organization exist? What are we supposed to even be doing? Answer it, and then challenge that. Say, is that what if? What are the assumptions that stem from that? And some of those you might not like, but doesn't ring true. And then that means that maybe you need to reframe that in your mind a little bit. And getting a little philosophical here, but I think that's the value of first principles thinking, because then you'll find solutions and have principles to tie your recommendations to that are not just because you've done it that way before, because the former director did it that way, or because the challenge with DMOs is they're funded certain ways.
Yeah.
And that's the challenge. A lot of the funding, the way you're allowed to use your funds, is reasoning by analogy.
Yep.
It's not necessarily first principles funding. And that's a challenge that we got to fight.
Yeah. Well, which is why you can't exacerbate it by reasoning by analogy to solve the problems that are already inherently flawed because of the way the funding is structured. It
Yeah.
only makes it worse and worse. Camden, with the time that we have left, I'd love to have you maybe just give some advice to those that are listening and want to move from tactician to strategist. What's your recommendation? How can they ensure the next 10, 15, 20 years of their career through this specific piece of advice that you're going to give? You're going to save the next 15 to 20 years of their career. Sorry, I'm trying to put unnecessary pressure on you for this answer, but I do want to know what your thoughts are on how to actually go about this.
Solve problems first, and then figure out what your skill set is in helping address those, and that is your job. Because we're going to have job titles. I'm not saying we're going to eliminate and everyone does this called employee 1, 2, 3. You're going to have a job title. It's going to be based on, like, I know I'm not great at web development, so I'm not gonna become a web developer, but I can help solve problems and know enough about websites to make suggestions, and then someone else who is called a web developer will solve that web thing. So become a problem solver, and then first, and your value will become clear. And so I guess I guess easier said than done again. I'll say that a few times now, but become a problem solver, and then start with that. What else? Get better at recognizing or challenging those assumptions that you have, your own assumptions, and then the assumptions of those around you, because there's a lot of reasoning by analogy that's happening. And it makes sense. It's a nice heuristical way to operate. It's efficient in the short term. It's not efficient in the long term, making big impact. So question your assumptions, question the marketing rules, the best practice. We call ourselves Brand Revolt because we're all about breaking the status quo, not because it's when it doesn't work, I guess you say. If things aren't broke, don't fix them. But a lot of things could be improved and should be broke, and so don't be afraid to break things. And be a consumer of the industry. I know that's going to be a little bit different for some people because it is a job and not necessarily everyone's like driving passion. Like I said, I've been fortunate enough that I really just do find entertainment in the marketing game. So maybe you don't love it as much as I do, and you could still be okay at your job, but become a consumer, what's happening around you. Don't just think about your own brand and your own problems. See what other brands are doing. See what other destinations are doing. See the headlines of who's moving where, what campaigns they're bringing with them, and things like that. And a lot of learning can take place through the experiences of others that you don't have to stumble into yourself. You can kind of learn from them.
I love it. It's great advice, and I would say for everybody listening, one of the suggestions I have for you, Camden, and it pertains to everybody that's listening, is One of the things that you do in our organization that I absolutely get a kick out of is you're the king of like the 11:30 p.m. Here's a cool marketing thing that I found, and I actually think you should start like a X account or like a TikTok or something. Camden's late night finds, and get all the marketing nerds that are awake late at night just perusing the different advertising and marketing campaigns that are out there will find a ton of value in Camden's late night finds. I think there's a
Okay.
huge opportunity there, Camden.
Yeah, I'll live stream only from 11 to 12 at night. That'll be my yeah. Okay, I'll think about that.
And that comes by request from multiple other people in our organization to get it off of our Slack channel and onto your TikTok channel. Just kidding. Well, Camden, this has been a lot of fun, man. I really appreciate you coming on again and kind of going through some philosophy as it pertains to marketing. There's a lot of change coming in 2026 and beyond. And I really want our listeners to be ready. And I think this conversation will have a lot of impact on helping people get ready for what's coming. So thank you. Really appreciate you taking the time.
Appreciate it. Yeah, I agree. Thanks for letting me be here.
Yeah, if anybody wants to reach out to you, ask some more questions, or if they want to, get on the list to get your late night finds when they come out, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, we'll see about other channels as far as there may be some future channels, but right now LinkedIn's the best. Camden Bernatz on LinkedIn, and then email me at camden@thebrandrevolt.com.
Camden, thanks a lot. Really appreciate it. And thanks everybody for listening. If you enjoyed today's episode, please don't forget to leave us a rating or a review. Helps us continue to bring you amazing guests like Camden. Thank you, everyone, and have a great week. If you followed me for a long time, you know that owned media is something that I'm incredibly passionate about. I believe that building communities through owned media is the future of the destination visitor relationship, and I really believe that that's where the industry is going. In this journey, I've discovered that there is a gap in my strategy, and that's the fact that if we don't have an adequate digital home for this community to be created, it's going to be a lot more difficult to connect that media to the correct audience. This is why a lot of the websites that are existing in the industry are no longer relevant and no longer working the way that they're supposed to. If your website is nothing more than a glorified directory or a series of listings about the different attractions, restaurants, dining establishments, hotels in your destination, you're only scratching the surface on what people are actually looking for from a destination website. The website of the future is a content hub, and of course it's going to be integrated with AI, but a content hub where people can go learn about your destination and interact with the content that is most relevant to where they are in their buyer journey. If all you have is a bunch of buttons that say buy now, buy now, buy now on your website, you are not serving your audience. We want to build a community of people who are passionate about visiting the destination, and we can build that relationship through content. I have partnered with an organization called Destination Core, and together we have reimagined the destination website to be this content hub that I'm describing, where you can build a community. And Destination Core is an incredible company out of the UK. They've built, at this point, hundreds of destination websites, and I'm so thrilled to have built this new reimagined website concept with them. We are rolling it out right now with several pilot clients, and it's going amazingly. I can't wait to show you those pilot projects. If you're interested in being one of the first to experience this new reimagined website concept for destinations, reach out to me at adam@thebrandrevolt.com, and we can get that conversation started.